Hey everybody, this is LilSteveRogers, and this is my review of Platoon. This movie is from 1986, directed and written by Oliver Stone, and it stars Charlie Sheen, Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger, Forrest Whitaker is in this movie, Johnny Depp is in this movie, John C. McGinley, aka Dr. Cox from Scrubs. It's got a whole lot of famous people in this movie, Keith David, but the movie mainly focuses on Charlie Sheen's character, which is loosely based on Oliver Stone himself. This movie was written by Oliver Stone after about his time in the Vietnam War and what all he experienced and what all he saw and the questions that came up in his mind, like, is this ethically sound? Is it okay to do this wrong thing in order to do some right for our country? And it brings up a lot of questions. It's very, very thought-provoking. And so I'll talk about that later, but right now I'm going to talk about the acting. First off, you got Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen is basically the lead actor in this movie. It does tend to focus on Willem Dafoe and Tom Berenger a little bit, but mostly it's Charlie Sheen, and I'm glad to say that at one point in his life, Charlie Sheen was a sober actor who was actually good at his job. A lot of people don't realize this, but an actor's job is to get you to care about their characters, to care what happens and what doesn't happen to them. Even if it's a villain role, okay, you still have to care about those characters. That's why when, and I'm using this as an example, when Agent Coulson died in the Avengers, everyone in the world was so distraught over this, and he was just kind of a minor character, but Clark Gregg did a great job of making us care about his character. Charlie Sheen did a fantastic job of making us care about what happened to him. Whether it's good or bad, we wanted to see what was going to happen next with him. And he was just kind of this shut-in, and you can tell he's sort of like folding into madness as everything around him turns to shit. But in the end, like, yeah, you do root for this guy. I never rooted for Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men, on any other thing I've seen him in, but in this movie, I actually cared about him. So, you know, props to you, Charlie Sheen. Get off drugs, please. You're such a better actor than when you don't. Anyways, next you have Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is basically Charlie Sheen's role model throughout this movie, and he gives a great performance, as he always does, but he's overshadowed, I think, by Tom Berenger. And Tom Berenger is the other sergeant in Sheen's platoon, and this guy is the textbook definition of crazy. He has PTSD, and he's already in the war. So, and this guy is crazy. He doesn't mind if he, spoiler alert, kills his own men. He does what he thinks is right, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks, because there's no laws out in Vietnam. There is no order in Vietnam. So he just does it. He does whatever he wants, and there are no consequences for his actions. And Charlie Sheen has a lot of conflicts with him, and those scenes are really interesting. Tom Berenger, I didn't know who he was until I saw this movie, but now I want to see him in more stuff. I want to see more movies that he was in, because it was just fantastic. As far as the other cast goes, they do a pretty good job. Johnny Depp, Keith David, Forrest Whitaker, they all give pretty good performances, but they're minor roles. The only other big role I can think of is Sergeant O'Neill, played by John C. McGinley, who is Dr. Cox from the TV show Scrubs, for those of you that haven't seen it. And wow, he was a dick in this movie too. He was such a dick. And it fit him. He plays that character type very well. He also did the little newbie whistle that he does all the time on Scrubs. But mostly, the real star of this movie is Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone directs this movie so gritty. It feels real. You feel like you're there with the men, and you're seeing all this tragedy happen. And you're seeing all these terrible things. You're seeing your own men get killed, and that's what makes a great director. And as far as the writing goes, I don't know what shit he experienced over in Vietnam, but oh my god. Yeah, this was intense. This was very well written. You can tell Oliver Stone knew what he was talking about. He knew all the military jargon. He knew everything about that situation. And so it was just so much, well, not fun, but it was very interesting to see where they went with this story, where they took Charlie Sheen's character, Willem Dafoe's character, Tom Berenger's character, where they took those three actors as far as like how far their story goes and how far into madness they sink. And the action scenes are well paced, you know. Like I said, this is a very well made movie. It won the Oscar for Best Picture, I think, in 1987. And for good reason, because this was fantastic. I don't think... This is up there with Black Hawk Down and Saving Private Ryan with some of the best war movies ever made. I'm definitely going to have to rewatch this because it's so fantastic. I recommend that everybody watch this movie. And before I leave, I'd just like to say that I have nothing but the utmost respect and admiration for our armed forces. You guys are the reason that we're allowed to keep our freedoms here at home, the reason we're not speaking a different language, and after watching this movie, I gained a whole new respect for what you go through. I hope you all make it back safe, and I'm LilSteveRogers. I'll see you later.